a standout player, please, from each of the East, Central, West, North. So since we were just talking about the East, who's your standout player from the East going to be?
Is this a surprise, like a
No,
sleeper,
this
or
is
just a guy
no,
who's
no.
going to put it together?
This is a guy who's going to be like the best player, who's going to have the best season out of all of the players in the East. Who do you think it's going to be?
That's a good question.
Thank you. I came up with it myself, actually.
Yeah, I would have loved it if you had told me about this beforehand. No, but I think
what's the fun? I only thought of it about 2 minutes ago.
For a surprise player, I'm probably going to pick the crowd favorite and say Taylor Hall. Because I just don't think Taylor Hall's ever played with a center like Jack Eichel.
Yeah,
in his career. And I think that's going to be refreshing for him. And he's going to also be playing in a market with, actually, to be fair, besides Edmonton, he hasn't played in a market with any pressure. So,
yeah.
But I think they're going to have fun in this division. So I'll say Taylor Hall for that division.
I think Taylor Hall is a great choice. I think there's a chance, we always have Barzal as a point of reference because of just how good he is. But I'm gonna pick Carter Hart because I think he's gonna win the Vezina this year. So I'm gonna pick Carter Hart.
That's a good shout.
Central. Who's your player from the Central?
I probably have two guys to kind of keep an eye on. One of them is your favorite, and that's Max Domi.
Oh,
I can't wait to see what he's going to do on actually playing center in top six.
I think it's going to be really interesting to watch.
He was kind of robbed of that opportunity in Montreal for reasons that who knows, but
yeah.
So Domi and then Martin Nikash down in Carolina. I think that kid is so good, and I think he could be a real sneaky pick for helping Carolina really solidify that second position if they can.
Yeah, I'm also going with Carolina, but I think it's going to be Dougie Hamilton based on the fact that it's a contract year. He's trying to make himself as attractive as possible. And I think he's going to make everyone jealous of... I mean, I think everyone is jealous of Carolina's defense. So, anyway, besides the point. Dougie Hamilton from Central for me. What about the West? Who are you picking from the West? Because there's the obvious pick of perennial MVP candidate Nathan MacKinnon.
Yeah, but I'm not picking guys to watch based on we know Connor McDavid and Nathan MacKinnon are going to be amazing.
Yes.
Who are you Brandon
picking?
Saad of Colorado. I think he could just explode if he, because as you read out the lines earlier, he's going to be with McKinnon.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big explode this season.
I think that's a good pick. I'm picking, and I don't know why, but I feel like it's a good trajectory for this year. Kevin LeBlanc for San Jose. I think
he finally got his contract.
And he's only 25. For me, it feels like he's a guy who's old in the league because he's been there for years, even though that's not the case. But I think he's, everyone at San Jose, we talked about this, everyone at San Jose was so bad last year. And I just think that he's going to feel revitalized and, on a San Jose team that's going to be so much better.
Yeah.
And from the North, who is your guy who's going to play out of his skin from the North?
Well, everyone knows my pick is going to be Dominic Cahoon.
Well, it has to be.
It has to be. My prediction that I got right. I actually think he's, as funny as that is, I actually think he is going to have a good season.
Yeah.
Because I know he's best friends with Leon Draisaitl, and they played in Germany growing up together. So, and he's when he was in Chicago, he was one of their top young players, and then he was traded to Pittsburgh and then traded to Buffalo. He's got a lot of talent. He's a definite top 6 forward. So if you put him with Leon Draisaitl, he could be a 20-goal scorer easily. Yeah. So Dominic Cahoon as being my pick, as in kind of being kind of funny about it, but when you actually look at it, but also
legitimately
dead serious, I think Dominic Cahoon could really kind of put it together. But then again, Josh Anderson, not that he's my pick to kind of blow up, but he's my pick to really kind of see what he's going to be.
Yeah.
Because we saw like the 27 goal season in Columbus and kind of all that entailed. And then he had last season, which he just couldn't defeat the injuries.
Mm-hmm.
This is the season that it's going to be. He's getting paid. We're going to see what he's made of. Is he Tom Wilson or is he not? So
yeah. I'm picking Jimmy Vesey. I think
wow.
I think he is the same kind of Dominic Cahoon breakout that there was so much promise for him coming out of college. He, just didn't click in New York. Like there were so many different things that just didn't click for him. I think that there is a chance. I mean, and obviously he has that old chemistry with Kerfoot from when they played together in college, and they were, I can't remember which coach said it, but he said that they were the best 1-2 in college hockey he'd ever seen.
And at Harvard?
Yeah, and I cannot for the life of me think who said it, but I think, once Kerfoot gets back from injury, Jimmy Vesey, and I really liked watching him play in the Leafs Blue White game. I think he's
playing with John Tavares. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's got a better. Like, I wonder if when Kerfoot gets back, will Keefe move him to that third line and kind of have like a Hyman, Kerfoot, Vesey third line. I don't know. I think he kind of likes the Mikheyev role on that, just because it's like three guys who can kind of do it all. And I think playing with Tavares and Nylander is going to be massive for him.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's bringing us to the end of the division. So we're going to talk about award winners, talk about fantasy sleeper picks. But before we do, it's time for the classic, patented Halftime Brewskis halftime cap twists. No, what would you call this? Cap opening, I guess.
Drinking time.
Yeah, drinking time is the point. So basically, we're gonna put. Oh dear. We're just gonna.
I haven't.
Okay, we're just gonna. This is the first time that we've actually timed it, so it's kind of gonna sound together. So just gonna go 3, 2, 1. See, with a delay and 3,000 miles, we kind of timed that perfectly.
I fully have one already half open, so this is gonna be. We're gonna be flying by the end of this podcast.
It's worth it for the bit. My White Claw has really set me off on the best foot possible. Now
I'm drinking Hayals, so that doubles White Claws.
Me. Well, now I'm drinking a Omnipolo Zodiac, so delicious beer, lovely can, and good notes.
Yeah, are you a liquor expert after your time at the LCBO, or can we say them on here? I don't know.
Well, I mean,
already did. Edit me out.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess I'm just getting used to no longer being an essential worker again, and that fall from grace. So it's a tough act, It's going from hero to zero. Really, it was like 0 to hero to 0, in the space of about 23 days, which for most people would be disarming, but for me, it's just kind of normal life.
Yeah, tell me about it.
And on that note, we're in the last stages of the podcast, but kind of sort of not really. So buckle up, put those safety helmets on. We're talking about the award winners now. So we're going to start off with the art. Who do you like? This is the, I was going to say this is one of the easier decisions to make, because it's who's going to be the best player, is the MVP of the league, because the people we're going to be talking about. But in a 56 game season, who do you have as your art winner this year?
As my heart winner?
Yeah, I said art about 4 times, but I was also because I'm trying not to burp straight into my microphone.
Yeah, every time you say heart, all I hear is art.
Oh yeah, well, that's just so I don't burp Omnipolo Zodiac straight into the mic.
Okay, now that all the listeners have that image in their heads, let's continue on with this. So my picks for the heart this season, literally just 2 names came to mind, and I couldn't get them out of my head.
Yep.
And that would be Matthews or McKinnon. if this was like, it's almost McKinnon's year, but it's like, oh, Matthews could just tear this division up.
I agree.
But I will say McKinnon. That's the one who I'll actually pick, but those are kind of my two finalists because I do think Matthews is just gonna even watching the scrimmage game, like he's just so big and so strong.
Yeah, I think he's gonna really dominate.
Yeah, and that's what I thought going into last season as well. I was like, after watching his off-season training videos, he's just like, he's so much bigger than what he was as a kid. And now it's just, and he was having an amazing season last year. Like he probably would have won the Rocket. So yeah, McKinnon will be my heart pick, even though that's probably the most boring pick I've made because it's the most predictable. McKinnon would still be it because I think just Colorado is just going to run rampant in that division. Besides Vegas and St. Louis, I think he's just going to feed on those lower tier teams when he's playing Arizona, LA, all those teams a lot. I think he's just going to tear it up.
I think there's definitely the case for Matthews, and I think that's partly because everybody thinks, like when we're talking about Pedersen having to play against Shea Weber, it's like, he's just gonna get shut down a lot. The difference is Matthews consistently plays against the best defenseman in the league and still consistently scores, and that's why he is in a different league. Well, the same league, different stratosphere.
We got it. We
got it. Yeah. Well, I ruined it by then explaining it. So the point being is I think Matthews is a really genuinely good pick, but I don't know why I feel like this is going to be a year that Tavares will win the Hart. I don't know why.
That is a shout.
I don't know why.
For all our listeners, wow. John Tavares winning the Hart. Wow.
I think.
Are you a Toronto Maple Leafs fan?
Occasionally, sometimes.
Just asking for the audience.
I think, obviously, well, that's mostly because you picked the easy pick of McKinnon, because obviously McKinnon is probably going to win it.
You could have said McDavid.
No, because I think McDavid's too obvious a pick as well. And like I could have said Draisaitl. But all of those are obvious. And I'm Mr. Captain Not Obvious.
A deep shot would be like Sebastian Aho.
Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to be wrong, you'd pick Aho. Says the guy who picked Tavares. I wonder. Yeah, no. I mean, I don't even have.
Move on to our next one.
Yeah, I don't even have faith in the Tavares pick, but I said it, so I'm sticking to it.
If that pick is correct, you're just gonna.
I'm a god.
Till the day you die, you're gonna.
I'm never gonna let people forget that I picked. Anyway,
the Dominic Cahoon pick.
Ooh, Cahoon for the Hart.
Maybe. Norris.
You can't now. I'm not gonna pick John Tavares for the Norris, just so we're clear.
I'm not gonna pick either Austin Matthews or Nathan McKinnon, or Dominic Cahoon. Unfortunately, can't pick him for this. Or maybe I could, but. For the Norris, I'll say Cale Makar.
I have to go first next time. Yeah, okay.
But as like a deep shout, it would be on the last place team in the North Division, like a Thomas Chabot. I think he could get. I think he could start to get some recognition as being just an all-around amazing defender. But to win the Norris, you got to be on a good team. So Cale Makar is the best defenseman on. I think the best team. So
yeah, I agree. I think Makar is the smartest pick. I think someone who's going to have a bounce back year. No, I mean he's not in with a shout. This is Trouba, and I don't think he's not in with a shout. He's not my pick.
But I think he's going to have points to be
No, I know, and that's why he's not my pick. But I think he's going to have a much better year this year. I wonder if it's going to be someone like Pietrangelo playing on Vegas, like getting the points, having the power play time, still being able to be the elite defender he has been, but with a change of scenery will elevate him to that next level.
Yeah. I thought about Pietrangelo too. I'm still not completely sold on Vegas.
Yep.
But I think there's a lot of guys who could blow up this season and really push, like Miro Heiskanen in Dallas. I would not be shocked
fantastic.
if he won the Norris. If
is...
Seth Jones finally puts it together in Columbus.
Yep.
Like there's a lot of talent across the board. So Quinn Hughes could win the Norris.
No. I agreed with Seth Jones. Like
and Miro Heiskanen, but Quinn Hughes is really Joe line.
Yeah. Okay. You want a deep pick? Mikko Lehtonen. That's a deep pick.
Okay, moving on.
His vision, dude. His vision. Moving on to the Rocket.
Such the one guy who overreacts to every scrimmage game ever.
Exactly. I saw the vision, dude. I saw the vision. He had 2 assists, or maybe more. I wasn't paying that much attention. The Rocket. Who's winning the Rocket this year?
Matthews.
Yeah, I don't know why I asked the question, so I should have just said Matthews first. It doesn't seem like, but yeah, Matthews, I think is it's really interesting because it depends on how Pasternak comes back, because he can score from. I mean, like Matthews, I think actually, honestly, probably more than Matthews, Pasternak can score from any part of the ice.
He just won't be back in time.
I just don't think he's going to have enough time to be able to catch Matthews.
If Stamkos is healthy, maybe he gets a shout because he can show up those bottom tier teams. But I still think Matthews is the show for the Rocket.
Mm-hmm. Now, I already revealed my Vezina pick when we talk about the East because I think Carter Hart's going to win the Vezina. Who do you have for the Vezina?
That was my pick.
I know, but I was sneaky about this. I really got this in early.
I'll go with Vasilevsky from Tampa. I think if
easiest competition.
Yeah, and I think that team's just going to be dominant in that division. I feel sorry for John Gibson. I still think John Gibson, if he was on a good team, he would win that. He would have a real shot at winning the Vezina. So if Colorado's listening, go get John Gibson. That'll win you a cup.
Oh, that'll win them. That'll be if they went out and got John Gibson. You're talking about a Chicago Blackhawks type dynasty being. I mean, Colorado's not far from a Chicago Blackhawks type. They have the prospect capital
to do it. So
yeah.
Do it. If it costs you Alex Newhook, do it.
Well, they don't need Alex Newhook.
They don't.
It would be
and
delightful
he's
to have.
And he's an elite prospect.
It would be delightful to have, and the prospect of Newhook playing on the 4th or 3rd line because that's how stacked Colorado is also.
If you offer them like Alex Newhook and Connor Timmins, see if they bite.
Why not? And what about the Calder? Because this is difficult because it depends on which teams are gonna like. Is Byfield gonna actually play this year?
No,
don't think so.
Even if Byfield played, he wouldn't be my pick in a million years. One, because I think Byfield's gonna take a few years to get it together. But did you watch his World Juniors? Like he was terrible. He had one good game. He was awful. Who knows if Bowen Byram will play? I think the safest pick would probably be a Kapril Kaprizov because he's older than pretty much all the other Calder candidates. But you're forgetting about
Mikko Lehtonen.
If that's your pick, go with that. But I'll go with Shesterkin or Kaprizov.
God damn it! I was picking Shesterkin. I absolutely think I had him in my fantasy last year, and I didn't pick him as a keeper, and you're in a keeper league
and you gave away Shesterkin.
You can only keep 3 people. And then you kept Freddie Anderson.
Freddie over Taylor Hall.
Yeah, but that's
who was your first keeper?
Connor Hellebuck and John Tavares.
Okay, fair.
Also my team fell off dramatically. We're talking Tavares, and we're talking and we're talking Cam Talbot. Like I scraped into those playoffs, and I was winning the first round matchup as the 8th seed against the 1 seed handily, and then COVID ruined my run to the finals. Anyway, that's a perfect segue into talking about fantasy hockey. It's a massive part of our lives. This is how James and I first knew that we hated each other when it came to fantasy hockey.
Well, because you kept on losing.
Because I won in the most important categories, such as hits. And
you would draft Milan Lucic in the second round just so you could tell everybody he would win hits that year.
I know, but I was able to say from the draft, I guarantee I will win hits.
He's the only guy who literally stood up in media class, fist bumped the air because he got Tommy Wingles in the 8th round.
Tommy Wingles was a solid pick and actually had a pretty good season. I think he got like 30 points. That was still when Milan Lucic was kind of okay, though, so he was a good goal scorer. We're going to talk some fantasy picks, and we've obviously we can obviously leave out the blatantly obvious who are going to be the top 20 pick. We know all of that stuff. We're talking not necessarily sleeper picks, but just a couple of really solid guys that you could pick up that might float under the radar. And the first guy that I have, who I think is going to float under the radar a little bit, is Dylan Strobe in Chicago.
Yeah.
I think especially with Taves out, there's going to be even more responsibility, and he showed growth in his game last year. The chance of playing with Patty Kane, depending on how everything plays out in Chicago, it's going to be great for him and as a fantasy pick.
Well, I mean, like Taves and Kirby Dach out. He's got no competition.
True, and Kirby Dach as well, yeah.
Yeah, so he's definitely playing with DeBrincat and Kane. Mm-hmm. So, like, that's not going to be a great Chicago team, especially not defensively. But that line could just really catch fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
I also have Andrei Burakovsky. And that's kind of like a cheat pick because we know and we've talked about at length how good this Colorado team is. And then when you look at Colorado, they've got Rantanen, they've got McKinnon, they've got McCarr, they've got Landeskog, they've got all of these really, really good fantasy players. I think Burakovsky is a vague sleeper pick because he was playing on the line with Rantanen and McKinnon. I think it could turn out to be a nice little mid-level pick for you. I mean, I have other people, but I'll let you pick one because I know I've got some good ones.
Well, obviously, my first pick is going to be Dominic Cahoon.
Yes, of course.
But I genuinely actually think he's going to be a sleeper in fantasy. Like, I get that all the listeners are like, "Oh, this kid did not just say Dominic Cahoon for the 10th time this podcast."
Yeah.
Yes, I'm literally talking him into being one of my favorite players, and now this is going to be a running joke for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
No, it's an Edmonton jersey. I would never. But I honestly think Dominic Cahoon's going to have an opportunity to play with either Leon Draisaitl or Connor McDavid. So I do think there's actually going to be value in this pick. But granted, like this is kind of much more of a sleeper kind of later round kind of pick because he's not gonna get you a lot of hits like Olly likes or anything like that. But so I think Dominic Cahoon is a good shout. The next one I'm not gonna recommend him, but I think he's one to watch would be Kasperi Kapanen in Pittsburgh.
Interesting. I think that's fair though. I mean it depends.
I kind of have two trains of thought on him.
Yeah.
One, I think everyone that Malkin and Crosby play with get better. They just have that knack for making players really good.
Yep.
But my one hesitation would be every time Kapanen stepped into the top 6 in Toronto, whether Marner or Nylander was hurt or whatever, and he had to go up and play with Matthews or John Tavares, he never showed up and he never got better. So that would be my one hesitation about this pick, but I have a sneaking suspicion that he could go to Pittsburgh and really start to put it together.
I think Kapanen is I think that's kind of like the pick that if you need another forward at the end, if he's still around, he would be a great pick just because there is that possibility. Like you're playing with two of the greatest players that we've seen in this generation. That's pretty straightforward. I think.
Do you have any defensemen that you want to recommend?
I've got one, and I think, I mean, I'm thinking about it now. It's Matt Grzelcyk in Boston, and I think it's just it's just like a safe depth pick, mostly because Torrey Krug leaving, Chara leaving. There's like he is gonna be held up and had a lot of weight on his shoulders of being the guy on Boston's defense, which is
And on their
nothing
power
like
play.
it was. And he's going to
Yeah.
be quarterbacking the power play. And I think and that's just going to result in him racking up points. I don't know if his plus minus is going to be great, just because based on the fact that he's probably also going to be thrown out against top lines. But I think, he still plays pretty physically. He's can score, but he's the opportunities on the power play and on the top line with Marchand, Pasternak, et cetera, is just going to be too great to miss him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say like my equivalent of a Matt Grzelcyk or kind of a sleeper guy. I don't necessarily know if this is the greatest fantasy pick, but I guess if you were really kind of looking for a defenseman who could kind of blow up this season, would be Phillip Myers down in Philly. I think he's going to have a lot of opportunity now that Niskanen's out, or not out, but retired.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to step into that top four. Like, obviously, he's not going to be on the first power play unit because that's pretty much either going to be Provorov or Gothisbehere.
Yep.
So don't take this as like necessarily a fantasy pick, but I think if you were a player to really keep your eye on as being a guy who could really shoot up the leaderboards this year, as being a defenseman to watch, would be Phillip Myers, because I think he's got all the talent in the world. He's big, he's strong, he can play an offensive game, he's really fluid. So I think Phillip Myers is a guy to keep your eye on.
And I got one goalie on my list, and that's Thatcher Demko. And mostly because I don't know, he's incredibly talented. And I hasten against it because, as we talked about with Vancouver, it's a bit of an issue, and he's probably going to get hung out to dry a hell of a lot. But if you've got a team that's working on saves / save percentage, I think he's probably going to face a ton of shots, so that could be a safe bet for you. And Vancouver could get hot, could be cold, so he might get the wins.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I didn't really pick a goalie. I think you could look at Kaskasua or Korpisalo. Sorry, it's Korpisalo.
Yeah,
not
Kaskasua, what a legend.
That would have been a pick right there. Korpisalo down in Columbus, or Merzlikins, whoever gets the starting goaltending job in Columbus, because I think they do play a strong defensive game. But yeah, I think for that perspective, Ilya Sorokin on the island, if he gets the starting position over Varlamov, who I don't think he will, but I mean he's a long-term shout if you want a keeper kind of goaltender to keep an eye on. Ilya Sorokin would be a guy to keep an eye on. So